They bought the company in 2002, and Banjo-Kazooie is now only like available on Xbox. And
again, more exclusives for their
more exclusives, and this was done as an exclusivity for your Xbox platform. But all the while this is happening, I saw a trend with games that were being created for PC and Xbox. Microsoft was going to them and giving them incentives. Basically, they were paying them to release for the Xbox platform first for a couple of weeks,
maybe
month.
a year or two.
If it's running on DirectX 8, the code base for the Xbox and for your Windows machine are virtually identical. I mean, the only thing that's really different, allowing for better graphics settings. So you add in the adjustable graphic settings, maybe some higher texture packs, and the control scheme.
So here's the interesting thing about that. The reason that they do this sort of thing is for segmentation and to create sort of a little walled garden. It's a really largely to control the customer base and make sure that they can siphon money off of them with things like Xbox Gold subscriptions and the monthly subscription for the internet. You're already paying for internet, but you're going to pay an extra subscription fee for things, so they can just keep their hand inside your pocket in ways that they couldn't. A lot of the developers started developing games specifically with the Xbox in mind. So Microsoft's business practice here, what it really does is screws the PC gaming community, and in the sense that we don't have access to these games that are completely compatible with the PC, and then a lot of the games that do come over have a bad case of consolitis.
And that term came about because of this entire process. You look at Deus Ex, which is the first one in the series,
yep.
And the
interface. Second one, oh my god!
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm going. You look at the original one, and watch this. You watch him. You see, it was the first one was designed around a keyboard and mouse, and the experience was designed around that. Being able to interface.
Used your entire keyboard, all your function keys, so many different keys you needed for different things. You could type in the game, you could use your number pad for different things. You used your entire keyboard. Part 2 comes out, the entire interface is just ridiculous. It's designed for a controller. In fact, I know that some people actually just said screw it and went and got a controller and played it with like that on their PC because that was easier. That was years ago, and that's what they did to the community. And, I guess a few years after that, in 2002, they established Microsoft Game Studios, and that was in charge of releasing and publishing all the different games for all the platforms. And it also acquired a bunch of different companies. Right now, they own everything from Lionhead to Mojang, which makes Minecraft. So all
they own Rare.
Rare, you can see over here all the different companies they own. Some of these are indie studios or studios that incubate indie products. But,
which is great. I mean, it's a great idea, but the fact that they're incubating these indie studios to develop for the Xbox, it's like even Mark of the Ninja, which was a fantastic game, was originally released on Xbox because of that. And that was a deal that they made with Microsoft, and from a developer perspective, I totally understand, and I don't like to sit here and say, oh, throw these guys under the bus. They wanted to make the game, and they wanted to get it out, and they wanted to get it released. Fantastic.
They also got some money, so
and
they needed the money for developing the game.
And that was they were given the budget, but one of the deals they had to sign was that they had to release it on Xbox first.
Microsoft can show up with $1 million in a truck out front and say, this is for the development of Zweihander. It has to be exclusive to Xbox for 6 months, and I'll tell them to go fuck themselves. Just so you guys know. And Microsoft don't even try it.
Actually, you know what? No, try it. I want to get all of that on tape, and I want to tell them to piss off. I want to film that. That would be great.
That would be pretty funny. So all this stuff happened, and then they're like, maybe we need to consider the PC gaming audience again. They're getting a little angry with us. They're using our platform, but they're getting a little angry, and there's also a lot of gaming happening over there, and we don't have a big piece of the pie anymore because we're playing with Microsoft Xbox. Why don't we create another walled garden specifically for the PC, and then start paying developers to use our walled garden on the PC? And they called it Games for Windows Live. And, it's similar to something like Steam or Uplay or one of the other services out there where you can go and buy your games and use it as a tool to launch your games, but it's different. They decided to lock it down. If you guys are curious about all the different problems with Games for Windows Live, I think Hitler says it best here. There's voice chat, there's no push-to-speak key. What the hell? That was not there. The exe files were locked down. You had no access to them.
It encrypted your save files. You couldn't do anything, any kind of mods or all that kind of stuff. Now, this was in 2008. that this happened. That's
still recently compared to the release of the original Xbox. It took them that many years before they were like, oh, the PC, there's people still play games there. We didn't anticipate that. I think they thought that people were just going to stop playing on the PC and start playing on the Xbox and start using their PCs as tax blast.
That really is what I think they were trying to do. And it annoyed all of us who were sitting here going, but why would I want to buy this thing from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Oh, look, they came out with a new one. It's still got 2 years outdated hardware. And let's move forward. It gets ridiculous, and it is annoying.
They learned their lesson. You know, the next time they come back and do this, maybe they'll be ready to finally support PC as a platform, right?
And it almost looks like they've been trying to make it look like they were doing that. With, you look at DirectX 10, you look at DirectX 11, DirectX 12, and we're like, yes, finally, we're getting somewhere, and we can actually not hate you as much as we have over the last 25 years. And then you gotta go and ruin the ride.
Guess who saw this coming? Gabe Newell. About a year or so ago, Gabe Newell looked at what was happening with Windows 8. And the Windows Store, which mostly had a bunch of cheesy apps that were similar to like an Android app, and really just casual games and basic applications that ran in sort of a different environment, not the typical Windows-style environment. He looked at that and he was like, I don't like what Microsoft's doing here. Maybe we need to look into making our own platform. So that sort of pushed him into saying, like, yeah, we don't have enough control over this, and it's dangerous. So maybe we should create our own version of Linux and make the Steam OS based on Debian. And he did that. And then now you can get Steam on any Debian-based distro pretty easily, and also some of the other distros, it's not that difficult to install. And he started shifting his focus there. A lot of the media immediately came out and were like, oh, tinfoil hat, Gabe Newell is afraid of Microsoft. Microsoft is the PC gaming platform. What is wrong with Gabe Newell?
So I think the issue that Gabe Newell had with this whole Microsoft Windows Store was that it isolates the game itself, or it isolates the application into their little encrypted walled garden, which is like the way that Apple loads all of their apps, except there's like this box around it. You know, when you look at an app in an Apple machine or in a Mac, it's a folder, it's got all this cool stuff inside of it, and you can actually open it up and dig into it and find the actual binary and find the, you know, effectively is the exe file, and run that directly. You can modify it and tweak it around. And that's kind of cool in its own little side concept topic we can talk about later. But if Microsoft creates this, and it's doing this, it creates this unified Windows platform, and all of these applications and games, and not just games, but a lot of applications are suddenly inside this little box. You don't have access to that exe file because they're encrypting it. They're locking it down.
This is bad, but it wouldn't be that bad if they weren't nerfing the experience and just sort of bringing it's like Microsoft. We understand you guys want to come back onto PC, but don't get your console all over our PC. That's what you're doing. You're just rubbing the console all over the PC. And that's not the way you should deal with PC gamers. We've got keyboard and mouse. We can do a lot more. The other thing that this is going to be very, very bad for is the mod community. Imagine trying to modify games that are on this platform. It's either not going to happen, or you're going to have to go through Microsoft and have their specific approval on everything you do.
It's going to turn into DLC or paid mods.
Yeah, paid mods. We can see them salivating over this already, so they're going to be able to have their hand in your pocket. Next up, I'm going to make a bit of a prediction here, because they're already talking about the next generation of their console.
It's going to turn into an amorphous blob that will constantly evolve as time goes on, kind of like your PC. Weird how that is. One of the things about the Xbox or any console is that you have the software that you write for the hardware, and when you look at the Sony PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Nintendo 64, Nintendo, all these things had very different CPUs. Each CPU had its own instruction set, and it was very, very different from one to the next to the next.
There's a lot of segmentation among the hardware, which makes it more difficult to develop for, but not that much more. Not this day and age.
No, but what it did, though, is when you look at the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 are not software compatible. And people are like, but wait a minute, Kane, the PlayStation 2 could totally play all your PlayStation games. Yes. So the I/O controller for the PlayStation 2 was an entire PlayStation 1, minus the audio and the video. It was all, that part was all done by the backside of the PlayStation 2. So when you move into the PlayStation 3, one version of it had a PlayStation 2/PlayStation 1 built into it, so you could play all those things. Actually, now I take it back. I don't even think you could play PlayStation 1 games anymore. It was just the Emotion Engine was built into the PlayStation 3. That all gets crazy. So the backwards compatibility on those makes sense of it not working because the hardware is very, very different. But when you look at an Xbox versus an Xbox 360, you're still looking at an x86 instruction set. You're still looking at some kind of GPU graphics card. Whether it be AMD or NVIDIA is really irrelevant because we've proven that they can all work kind of the same. But then you look at its DirectX 8 versus DirectX 9 or 10 versus DirectX 12 or 11 on the Xbox One. You know, all of these things, and it all worked. But looking backwards, none of these new platforms could play the old ones. And the only reason I can see is Microsoft made a design decision on a software level. You get the new hardware, you could have just as easily put the old version of the software on there, or a new version of the software, but use the old version of DirectX to run these old games. You could have totally done that.
Yeah, I mean,
totally done that.
You do that just like you do on your PC. You have all the different libraries, and you can play everything on the PC. But now they're talking about this new Xbox platform where, you know, it's the Universal Windows platform is what they're calling it. But essentially, as you move forward, next year, games are going to get better. They're going to become more demanding, just like they do on all the other platforms. And they want to be able to upgrade the Xbox One with new hardware. So it's essentially it's almost like a Steam box, but a very light version of it, you know, like a less nerdy version.
Yeah, Nintendo 64 had two major expansions. One was called the disk drive, which failed miserably in Japan and never made it to America. And the other one they had was just a RAM upgrade.
Yeah,
and it was just so they could
certain games like Perfect Dark.
Because they used higher textures and they were able to push more, but there was nothing. None of the hardware needed to be improved. They just needed more memory to run this stuff. So you had the memory expansion, and bam, suddenly you can have Perfect Dark running. Yay, it's great.
So they're talking about this Universal Windows platform. I'm going to make a few predictions here, filling in some blanks. They've said a lot of these things, but they're sort of trying to unify all this, and I think in the future they're going to try to unify this with the Windows Store. So imagine a world where you have the Universal Windows platform. It works on your Xbox, it works on Windows. Everywhere you go, you have your games library, and it's all locked down and has a bad case of consolitis, and it's inside Microsoft's walled garden. Also, as we move forward in the future, if you have an Xbox One game now, it's going to work on your Xbox One version 7, you know, in a few years when you upgrade your Xbox. It's all the backward compatibility thing is going to be there now because they want it to be there now.
Which I'm actually really impressed with, but it's something they should have done 20 years ago. Well, sorry, 16 years ago when they came out with the Xbox. I mean, this is not anything it's not like this is revolutionary. I mean, it is, but at the same time, they're trying to make this distinction that the Xbox is not a PC.
So, I mean, to really sum up the way I'm feeling about this is I don't trust Microsoft as far as I could sling a grand piano.
No.
Microsoft has done some really heinously anti-consumer things, especially when you look at what they've done to the PC gaming community. And now that they're getting back involved, I'm really worried about them pulling more developers over to make games exclusively for their stupid platform. And we'll go ahead and mention one right now, and that is Quantum Break, a game made by Remedy, which makes some pretty interesting games like Alan Wake, which I thought was going to be a really cool PC game until they partnered with Microsoft, and now Microsoft, I'm not sure why they don't just buy the damn company, but...
I'm kind of glad they haven't yet, but it's probably...
still, yeah.
But yeah, you know, Quantum Break was something that was supposed to be coming out for Xbox. Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft was like, hey, with this new UWP thing, we can totally put this on Windows 10. And one of the other things that's different from the... from like Steam, is if you get a UWP game and you buy it in the Windows Store, it only works on Windows 10. So you have to have Windows 10.
So
and you have to have DirectX 12 because I think the platform is, again, I think the platform is like another layer of abstraction. So you got DirectX 12 sits here, UWP sits on top of that, and all the games sit in here. So it can do all the translations from the old stuff to the new stuff. It's a really great idea, sort of.
Well, the other game that's interesting is coming out is Gears of War Ultimate Edition. And Gears of War is not a DirectX 12 game, but it's going to be locked to DirectX 12 so that it forces you to use Windows 10 and also...
Well, I think that's what I mean, is that the UWP, it's doing something that translates the game and what the game actually needs to have this. But if you have to have DirectX 12, that also means you have to have DirectX 12 hardware. So if you're running an old graphics card, sorry guys, you could play it previously, but boo-hoo, not anymore. Ha ha ha. We're Microsloth. We're going to have a...
Microsloth. Micro Trash. What was the other one? The Micro Shaft, yeah. So it looks like we're all going to get Micro Shaft here if we stay with Windows as our primary gaming platform. There's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it's kind of cool. I'm actually, in a way, glad that Microsoft is doing this. I think that, you know what?